What famous tourist spot does live up to the hype? The Vasa Museum in Stockholm. For those that don't know, it houses a 17th century ship that sank in 1628 and was recovered and preserved. Pictures don't do it justice. It's massive and legitimately the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. The Alps. I went there once and I still dream about those mountain peaks. There's no way to describe how inspiring they are. The way they're formed with diagonal strata layers makes them so visceral and raw. It looks like the earth ruptured, scarred over, and nature still found a way to thrive. The Olive Garden in Times Square. The Cliffs of Moher and the Giant's Causeway in Ireland. Prague is very beautiful and magical. The Blue Ridge Parkway. It's one of those find yourself moments looking out over rolling mountains that stretch to the horizon. Angkor Wat. Even amid crowds of tourists, the scale and beauty of the place is undeniable. I liked Glacier National Park. The views were amazing. Can't believe no one has said the National Mall Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. The National Zoo is great too. All of the monuments memorials are beautiful, and there are tons of incredible free museums which never get old. The Redwoods and Sequoias in California. I remember visiting Muir Woods for the first time in the early, foggy morning and it was almost like stepping back into another time. Also, Pictured Rocks in the Up of Michigan is absolutely beautiful. The Rockies in BC and Alberta. Spent just over a year and a half living there and spent 2 months of that time just living out the back of my van. Stopping at any waterfall, hiking trail, mountain base. Cannot recommend the Rockies in Canada more than any place I've ever been. Beautiful. The Natural History Museum, London. The Oregon coast, but go in the off season. The Alhambra in Granada. Been there 4 times and it never gets boring. It is so beautiful. Hawaii. Yes, it's crowded and the everything is marked up, as well as being entirely designed to take advantage of tourism. It's still amazing. Honolulu Airport is open air. You don't need heat or AC year round. The houses don't have central air. You just open a window. I saw multiple rainbows in a week just from the mists hanging over the mountains. And the local fish and produce is unbelievable. Hawaii is the most hyped vacation spot I can think of, and it manages to exceed it. Vienna. Just all of Vienna. Bruges. It's like a fairy tale. Auschwitz I and Auschwitz II Birkenau. I took a 6-hour walking tour. One of the most emotionally moving places I've ever been. Powerful stuff. Chichen Itza. Hot as a furnace, but it is so much more than one pyramid. I thought Chichen Itza was 5 times better than Egypt. Krakow is amazing and well worth visiting. Uluru. Ayers Rock, Australia. It's a giant rock right in the middle of the great continent, and is fully worth the visit, even if you will lose a kilo to the sweat. Just kidding, you got plenty of water and aircon, but it is hot. La Sagrada Familia in Barcelona is probably the most beautiful building I have ever been in. Milford and Doubtful Sounds on the South Island of New Zealand. New Zealand as a whole. I grew up next to Yellowstone, so my standards for beautiful country are reasonably cultivated. Jesus, it's beautiful there. Golden Gate Bridge. Every time I visit SF and drive across, it's always kind of breathtaking. A true engineering marvel, and coupled with the view of the city and the fog that's usually there, it's just an iconic slice of America. Neuschwanstein is quite incredible, and the views from the castle are breathtaking too. Northern Highlands and Scotland. Just stunning, and Coromandel in New Zealand isn't too shabby either, well, pretty much most of NZ for that matter. The city of Edinburgh. There's just something about it. It's spectacular, and has everything you could want around it. So far it is undoubtedly my favorite city. Skiing in Colorado. You think the trail's coming to an end, but wait, there's more. Plus the bowls on the backside were straight powder and a hell of a workout. So much fun. Highly recommend. London is an amazing city. People who don't like it generally do no research. Walk into a big tourist trap chain restaurant, Angus Steakhouse, Jamie's Italian, Bella Italia etc. Go to a pub and then say it's an awful city and we have no standards. Every city has tourist trap places like that though. Do some research and there are some of the world's best restaurants even in Zone 1. Excellent backstreet pubs. So many free or cheap museums. So much going on. To me, New York City. I went there in 2012. It was amazing. I remember tearing up looking at the skyscrapers and remembering Oliver and Company and We're Back. Like movies from my childhood that took place in New York City. The Taj Mahal. People complain that it is crowded and touristy, but almost every urban part of India is crowded, and the fact that you need a ticket for entry actually makes it less crowded than a lot of other areas. The architecture totally lives up to the hype, and the history behind it is amazing. Sleeping Bear Dunes is awe-inspiring and amazingly beautiful. Looking out over Lake Michigan from a big sand mountain that is constantly moving really puts things in perspective. I visited in the summer, fall and winter. I really want to get up there in the spring, and each season changes the experience more than enough to warrant return visits. I hesitate to share this, but Lake Louise in Banff, Alberta was the most beautiful place I've ever seen. Just don't flock there and duck it up please. Close second was Playa del Carmen. Mont Street Michel was a nice day excursion in Normandy, France. I went in June and it wasn't too crowded. Went up to the monastery, bought some souvenirs, ate a pizza, explored around the town, then walked on the wet sands around the town. It was a pleasant experience. My vote goes to the House on the Rock in Spring Green, WI. Totally blew my mind with just how insane it is. The only thing I can think of that I haven't seen already listed here is the Anne Frank Museum in Amsterdam. I went to the Netherlands with my buddy who really wanted to check it out. I just assumed that it was gonna be some cash grab thing to take advantage of people. Like idiots, we didn't get tickets in advance either, so we even had to wait in line outside in the light rain for like an hour or so as well. I was getting kind of antsy and sort of wondering why we even came. I never even read the diary. When you got in there though, and you start seeing the videos and the models and the actual rooms firsthand where this family was living for years in secret, it just hit me like a ton of emotional bricks. It completely humanized the entire idea of war and what it does to the individuals who have to live through it. For some reason, talking about a vast number of people dying sort of removes one's emotions from things. It's too big of a number to fathom. As soon as you drill down to the individual or family though, you really get a sense of things. All of a sudden, you imagine this sad story of one family and multiply it 1,000,000 times and it is almost too much to bear. So I highly recommend the Anne Frank House. Buy your tickets in advance though. Carlsbad Caverns was one of the coolest things I have done this summer. The elevator was broken and that made it even more spectacular. 90% of the people didn't make the hike halfway, so once you reached the bottom it was great. Absolutely recommend hiking in and skipping the elevator if possible. Quite a few places in Kyoto. I went to Kinkakuji, the Golden Pavilion, recently, and it was beautiful. Boy oh boy does Interlaken live up to the hype. Got a chance to go up to Jungfrau too. The train ride was the most scenic train ride I have ever been on. Sintra, Portugal. Summer playground of Lisbon's wealthy when Portugal was still an economic powerhouse. All sorts of palaces, manors and estates ranging from opulent and exotic to esoteric and bizarre. It's like walking into a fairy tale. Plus it's situated in the hills near the coast which give it a really interesting microclimate with lots of moss, ferns and fog. Street, Augustine, Florida. Beautiful little town. Old architecture, historical buildings, and Flagler College looks just like a castle, and it very nice. Red Rocks Amphitheater was absolutely breathtaking. Far and away the best music venue I've ever been to, and just in general a beautiful place even if you're not there for a concert. Angel's Landing and Zion National Park. Yes, it is packed. It's worth it. Santorini is breathtakingly beautiful. The French Quarter and New Orleans. I expected drunk people walking the streets and the stagnant odor of piss plus garbage. Didn't disappoint. Antelope Canyon, Lower. There are always tons of photos of this place on Instagram and everyone makes it seem like it's so crowded that you need a reservation. We drove up, got on the next tour, and ended up in the canyon just as the sun passed directly overhead. It was absolutely incredible. I'd say the Eiffel Tower. I've been underwhelmed by most of the monuments I've seen, but the tower exceeded my expectations and was very impressive to see in person. I've been to a lot of places in the world, and a lot of tourist spots. Every single place provides you with something, as long as you're open to it or try to look at it from a different perspective. I mean, the reason it's a popular tourist spot is probably because it's something worth seeing, even if the actual thing is underwhelming. The people that traveled to come see it are worth seeing. You can just sit back and watch people for all corners of the globe getting together for this one shared experience. The Florence Baptistry, the frescoes, the Gates of Paradise, and the significance it has to the city is amazing. 10/10 would see again. The US Supreme Court. If you come on a day they're hearing arguments, they'll let you sit in the back and listen for a while. I caught 20 minutes of one about patent law and the justices kept using this analogy of a bicycle pedal. Clarence Thomas looked like he was barely awake. Metro Vancouver. If you're a food tourist who wants to travel the world, come to Metro Vancouver instead. Eat all the world has to offer without traveling the world. Jackson Hole, Wyoming. It's expensive as hell but the town and the surrounding areas are just amazing. Dubrovnik Old Town and the Elafiti Islands in Croatia. Just beautiful. Port Marion in North Wales is lovely. Lake Louise in Banff, Canada. Petra. I've been so many times and it still amazes me. Westminster Abbey. It really is breathtaking. York, England. I'm from the US and was living in Norway at the time, so I had never seen anything like it. Their medieval city is pretty much intact and behind enormous walls. In a cafe I looked down to see a Roman wall under a glass floor. Little shops are built into parts of the walls. The Minster is incredible. Just breathtakingly beautiful and full of detail. You can spend hours in there, looking at the crypts and stained glass. I didn't think it was too crowded. It did get quite crowded later in the day in the Shambles, the commercial district. It's a very well preserved with medieval buildings still standing, leaning over the streets. The shops are all modern. They've even got a Starbucks in a beautifully restored building. MT, Desert Island, in Maine. Paradise at Mount Rainier in the summer when the meadow is in bloom, especially if you stay at the Paradise Inn and are up and about in the morning before the tourists arrive. Chicago. If you wanna see a monolith dedicated to how far we've come from being uncivilized animals, Chicago is as far as you can go. Not much hype here on Reddit, but I must say Salzburg. We've decided to stop there on our trip to Italy, drove by some main road to the city center, got into the underground parking and then took the elevator to the other side of the main street and then, what the duck? Such beauty, river, churches, castle, mountains with snow caps just past the beautiful city. I don't know why, but although I've visited a lot of European cities, this was really something memorable. Maybe not that popular, but the Harland and Wolff cranes in Belfast. Every time I walk past them, they still amaze me. The Grand Canyon. Pictures in no way do it justice. It is breathtaking how beautiful it is. Hiking slightly down into the canyon at like 6 AM to watch the sunrise was something I will never forget. Crater Lake. Just indescribable. Nearly all of the monuments in Washington, D.C. are beautiful and worth the trip. Lincoln Memorial, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, World War II Memorial, MLK Memorial, and others. Now getting around D.C., that's another issue, especially on a tour bus. The Killing Fields and Prison S21 in Phnom Penh. The audio tour is amazingly well done. It's very informative and had me in tears several times. I obviously knew about the Killing Fields and the Khmer Rouge before going there, but only by seeing it and hearing the audio you can grasp some of the horrors the whole country went through. Angkor Wat also was amazing in Cambodia obviously. Shipwreck Beach on the island of Zakynthos, Greece. the Duomo and all of Piazza della Duomo in Florence, Italy. The sheer size of the Duomo and the fact that construction started in 1296 is absolutely breathtaking. Toss in the baptistry and the bell tower, and you have one hell of a tourist spot. The Vatican. The whole place. Street. Peter's Square. The Basilica. The museums. The Sistine Chapel. The whole place is breathtaking. It is a tad crowded though. Machu Picchu. Long journey to get to, but very worth it. We didn't hike the Inca Trail, but flew to Lima. Lima to Cusco. Get altitude sickness. Take a small van 2.5 hours to the train. 45 minutes train ride to the small town of Aguascalientes and lodge there. Take a tour bus to the entrance up the mountain. Hike into the city early in the morning. Then sit down and wait. You could barely see 15 feet in front of you due to the morning fog. Over the next 2 hours, the fog and clouds slowly went away to see the most beautiful sunrise I've ever seen over Machu Picchu, the small hidden city in the Andes Mountains. It's a moment I will forever hold on to. Niagara Falls. It really is amazing.